when the tube's gone up and the bus is stopped, the top folks still come out on top.
Well, hello, welcome to the video. This time we're looking back to pub rock. Pub rock was a live experience, and every night there'd be literally hundreds of bands playing, hundreds of experiences, and I was involved with that, as you may or may not know. Looking back, I often watch videos on YouTube and I think, oh, I wish I was there, and very often I was there. I am so lucky.
Do I feel lucky?
There were hundreds of amazing gigs during the pub rock era, and some were very key. I was at quite a few of those, and I'm going to share the key gigs with you in two videos. This is the first one, part two follows. It'll be out the same time as this one, so watch them in either order, and let's get started. The first gig I'm going to talk about is Brinsley Schwarz at the Fulham Greyhound on 9th of January 1972. That's a crucial date because this is even before Brinsley Schwarz played at the Tally Ho, because you know the official story of pub rock started in London in sometime in 1971, I think it was May 1971, when the American band Eggs Over Easy persuaded the landlord of the Tally Ho, which was previously a jazz, blah, 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 blah. And then after that came Bees Make Honey and Brinsley Schwarz, and they all played that. But there are variables in this story, because this gig I'm talking about at the Fulham Greyhound was before Brinsley Schwarz played at the Tally Ho. So go figure, eh? Nothing is as set in stone as you might think. The Fulham Greyhound became one of the major pub rock venues, more so I'd say than the Tally Ho, because the Tally Ho was, I never liked it particularly. It was too far north for me because I was more west and south at London, but not just that, I never really liked the atmosphere because it was really an old bloke's pub, and it was like a jazz pub, I think. And the fact they put on bands that weren't always jazz doesn't make it into a rock pub. But I digress. Brinsley Schwarz, I don't know if you know, were the archetypal pub rock band. They were like led by Nick Lowe, and there were all these other people in the band who you would recognise their names. And they were, I don't know, they had this soft country rock, boogie style. And at the time I was very into Brinsley Schwarz, and I even booked them when I was a secretary at college. One of their songs which I really particularly liked was Surrender to the Rhythm.
Well, they dance to every tune the band could play.
And another one was What's So Funny About Peace, Love and Understanding, which went on to become a huge hit because it's featured in a movie. And obviously written by Nick Lowe. And at the time, he was a very young and thrusting guy. He went on, well, we talk about him a bit later on because he does appear a few times in this story. And just basically that gig at the Fulham Greyhound, I wasn't there. It was a little bit before my time in London, but it must have been a fantastic gig, and it's one of those gigs where I wish I'd been at. The next one could about, I believe was there because it's Dr. Feelgood playing at the Kensington pub by Olympia, which is in West London, on Friday the 31st of August, I almost said 1931, I don't know why. On the 31st of August, 1973. Now, I am pretty sure I was there. I was certainly there for quite a lot of things because eventually, after this, later on in that same year, they got a Saturday night residency which really made their name on the London pub rock circuit. But this was like a gig I'm pretty sure I was at. I think it was the August bank holiday weekend, and it was hot, as I recall, and it was like one of those things. I think the first time I ever saw them, I'd heard the buzz, because back then it was all word of mouth. You looked in Time Out magazine, which was the listings guide, but that's all you had. Really, there was the music press, the NME, the Melody Maker, and sounds to a lesser extent. But mainly it was the Time Out Music Listings magazine, which I later went on to work for. In fact, doing the same rock listings that I used to rely on in the early 1970s, 20 years later. I sort of knew what to expect because people told me it was like a band from Southend who'd had an amazing guitarist, and the frontman was like, you know, angry, and they were really a rocking band and the energy was amazing. But I sort of knew all that. Well, I sort of heard all that, but then when they got on stage, I think they were even late going on stage. I think one of them, maybe Wilco, wasn't there when they're supposed to be going on. So I remember they were all waiting, all getting their gear up and stuff and pretending to tune up and all that. And then whoever it was, I think Wilco came running on, and they 1, 2, 3, 4 and started playing. And the room took a collective gasp. It was such a powerful moment. Lee Brillo was I've said this in videos before, he was especially back in 1973, he was the greatest frontman I'd ever seen. I hadn't seen that many back then, and he blew me away. I was standing at the bar drinking a pint of something horrible. For what I can remember, a lot of the later music that people know, like Wilco was writing songs even back then, and it was just different. Well, it was familiar. They did tracks. I think they did a version even back then of John Lee Hooker's Boom Boom. And I think Wilco sung that one.
Boom, boom, boom. Gonna shoot you right down.
Just magical. It was just a magical night. And that's Dr. Feelgood at the Kensington. One night of many where I saw the early Dr. Feelgood and many of the later versions. And believe me, they're still going now. Obviously not as powerful as they were in 1973, but they were a pretty good band if you've got nothing better to do on a Saturday night. And let's face it, who has? And number 3 is another band that would become bigger later, because Dr. Feelgood obviously didn't reach their peak till 76, 77. Well, I say a band would reach their peak. It was their lead singer of Kilburn and the High Roads, who was a man called Ian Dury. I remember there's Humphrey Ocean in the band, and there's various people. They weren't as powerful as Ian Dury and the Blockheads, because with the Blockheads, Ian Dury was, even though there were a lot of people in the band who were like, you could say musical geniuses, though don't tell them I actually said so. But Ian was in charge. It was his band, and I think that's why they did so well. But Kilburn and the High Roads were a different thing. You could see that Ian, he hadn't quite worked out his persona. Like, there was none of this like clever Trevor stuff or that. It was like, they were mainly clever lyrics, catchy sort of songs, a bit jazzy in certain ways.
Climb down the feet and apologize. Don't need you. Oh, cocktail. Wow, wow.
If I haven't already said so, this is January 1974. So again, I was still quite new to live music, but I saw them at Dingwalls on this day, the 10th of January 1974, and I can remember thinking, yeah, there's something there, they're really, really good. I remember they had a really good support act on, and I, for the life of me, can't find out who that was. At this point, can I just say that if you're not already subscribed, it will be a great help, and it has apparently been scientifically proved, though I can't quite put my fingers on the paperwork, that subscribing to this channel will increase your lifespan by at least 4 years. So what are you waiting for? What have you got to lose? And don't forget to like it if you like it. If you don't, well, and share it with your friends. And let me know what you think by commenting down below. Were you at these gigs or were you not? At this point, I should point out that I'm thinking about starting a membership thing. Would you be interested in joining a membership with some perks and special videos and that sort of thing? Let me know in the comments what you think. And the next one is something else that's really, really good. But it's more than really good. It's the Damned playing at the Hope and Anchor. I can't find the exact date. I think it was August in 1976, but it was certainly, could have been September, because again, if you want to find out when the Damned recorded New Rose, which is the first punk single, well, first British one for sure. I think it's the first punk single, out and out one. And that was recorded in September. I think it was the 23rd of September, and it was released almost exactly a month later in October. But I saw the Damned by accident in August. I'm pretty sure it was August. It was quite hot, and it was a tiny cellar, which obviously the Open Anchor, if you've not been there, it only holds 80 people. They did record a video, which was very unusual back then, for New Rose downstairs at the Open Anchor. If this wasn't at the gig I was at, this was the next gig, because there weren't that many people at the, well, say weren't that many people. It wasn't because I've been the Open Anchor, which I'm sure you have too, and it's been absolutely rammed, and there's more than 80 people in. That night, I would say there were probably, I would have said there's 60 to 80, I would have said. I don't know, it's a long time ago. But the damn, all this stuff about like punk didn't come out of the pubs is totally wrong. Before this, you could see, I mean, accidentally, mostly, because they put on people at the National Rooms and things like that. The Dingwalls, which again, you see, I say Dingwalls, I've already done Ian Jury and Kilburn Harrow explain it, and Dingwalls. And people are going to say, that's not a pub rock venue. Dingwalls was really the queen, shall we say, of, because I always thought of Dingwalls as being female, don't ask me why, but Dingwalls was the queen of the pub rock venues, because Boss Goodman, who booked it for the glory years, he was like very into that scene. He'd been the roadie with the Pink Fairies and Mick Farron and all those things. And with the International Times, he'd worked with Mick on that. And he used to do a column for the International Times on food. So he was very into the pub scene, and I used to bump into him occasionally at places like the Elgin and places mainly over West London, because I think he lived in Ladbroke Grove, as they all did back then, apart from me. Boss, who booked it, was very much into that scene. So the Dingwalls was like, they had the better of the pub rock bands, and punk came out of the pub rock scene, because you would see people like the Damned and the Stranglers and the Jam and people like that, mainly doing supports to recognise that. And it just proved that if you were good, it didn't matter what sort of music you were, because pub rock, you could have reggae, you could have country rock, you could have jazz, you name it. I've said this a few times, pub rock was any type of music, and frankly, when I booked it in the second wave, which is the 1980s, first wave in the 1970s, which is what we're on now, as long as they were good at what they did, nobody cared, because if they were good, they would get on a stage somewhere. And that's the joy about pub rock, DIY rock, and that's the thing of punk. So the Damned are playing at the Open Anchor, again, sweaty, noisy, loud. It was just, it was so new, fresh, and exciting. Oh, those are the days, eh? And the Open Anchor was a really good place for it, even though it's a tiny place. John Eichler, who booked the bands, and also the Albion agency who owned it, who did most of it, frankly, they knew what they were doing. And frankly, I always tried to emulate Albion and Boss Goodman when I booked bands for my venues. So there you go. And the next one we're going to talk about is even more exciting than the last few. Wow, wait till the end though. It gets more. The tension builds up. And number 5 is Tom Robinson Band at the Bridge House, Canning Town, on the 7th of February 1977. Now, 7th of February 1977 was a Monday, but don't let that put you off, because if you know anything about the Bridge House, which basically was in Canning Town, it was like before the dock closed, it was mainly used by dockers, and I can't remember, there was a factory quite close. I can't remember what they did, I think steel work or something like that. It was very much a working class place. It had a big hall on the side of the pub, which held, I think, 900 people, which is way larger than most of these venues. But they also had other venues in the pub. A guy called Terry Murphy, who was an ex-boxer, he took over. There's a very good tradition of boxers running venues in the East End, because there was the guy who ran, I can't remember, the Uppercut Club, the boxer, his name has just gone, Billy somebody or other. Anyway, I should put his name up. He ran the Uppercut and various other things, and the guy that ran what became the Mean Fiddler before Vince Power in Harlesden, that was another boxer, and Terry Murphy was a ex-boxer, because it was a very rough pub. And this is why, putting on the Tom Robinson Band, who at the time were in the charts or were like known for their song Glad to Be Gay. Now, especially back in the 1970s, dockers and people in that area weren't particularly known to being very friendly to gay people. Obviously, there were gay people who were dockers, but frankly, I think they kept it a bit quiet. Because I can remember things like Jim Davidson on the TV would, like, you know, take the mickey out of black people and gay people and all kinds of things, which you wouldn't do now. Well, he might now, but I wouldn't then, actually, frankly. But there you go. So basically, Terry putting on the Tom Robinson Band, even though it was a Monday night, was a powerful statement. Up until when he first started, I think in 74, was it? He took over the pub. He mainly put on things like heavy rock. I mean, Samson played there a lot, Iron Maiden. I can't remember, there's another band. When I was researching this, one band, the name kept coming up all the time. So to start with, it was all hard rock. And then slowly, he started to experiment a bit and put in different types of things. I mean, Chas and Dave, an early version of Chas and Dave played there and all sorts of things. And he put on reggae, and he was one of the first people to put on punk as well. Because again, if it's good, he would have put it on. Because frankly, if you're running a music venue, all you want is people in your venue. So the Tom Robinson Band playing there was a very brave thing for him to do, and I believe the band thought it was, they were a bit anxious to start with, apparently, and I read online that at the end of the gig, when they got a standing ovation and encore, after they played Glad to Be Gay, they not only breathed a sigh of relief, but I think they were booked in to do, a residency. I think they did 2 or 3 more Monday nights. So those are days, happy days. And the Tom Robinson Band, I can remember going to see them, not there. I wasn't there for this, but I saw them at somewhere like the 100 Club, and I thought they were really good. And again, you see, that was all new. There was all these underground things and on the cusp of the new wave thing. So it's all very exciting. Well, thank you for watching. The part 2 follows in a few moments, and I think you'll find there's a link up there. Goodbye.